The ship broke through the thick layer of dust and static clouds surrounding Carrion 5, revealing the shattered remains of what was once the Galactic Council's central station. Lights no longer blinked on the outer ring. Cracks ran through its once polished metal walls. Its silence was the kind that only came after a long fall from greatness. William Wilson sat in the pilot's seat, hands steady on the controls. His ship, a modified courier-class vessel named Arcus, slowed as it approached the station. He looked out through the cockpit glass at the ruins that drifted in orbit, pieces of debris catching what little light the distant sun offered. The station used to host diplomats, peacekeepers, and engineers from across 1,000 worlds. Now it was a graveyard, and he had come to find answers buried inside it. "This is where it all fell apart," William muttered, mostly to himself. The voice of the ship's AI responded, calm and neutral. "Docking procedures ready." No signals detected from the station. William secured his helmet and checked his gear. The air on the station would be long gone, but that wasn't what worried him. What bothered him was the feeling in his chest, a tightness that had nothing to do with the lack of atmosphere. He had walked these halls before, back when they were filled with sound, movement, and purpose. Now, only ghosts remained. He docked manually. The airlock hissed open, and he stepped inside. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, revealing torn banners, rusted support beams, and scorched wall panels. Everything had been looted or left to rot. He moved slowly, scanning with a handheld device that searched for data signals or old storage units. Somewhere in this wreckage was the truth or a piece of it. He entered the main council chamber. The high-domed ceiling was cracked, but parts of the holographic map still flickered. Star systems blinked in and out like dying memories. He approached the old human sector, Earth's flag still dimly etched into a ruined panel. "Council log systems offline," the AI said in his earpiece. "Doesn't mean everything's dead," William replied. He walked over to the communication relay station, crouched beside it, and connected a portable scanner. Data lines flickered to life. One feed pulsed, weak, hidden behind layers of corruption. It was a secured human file. Encrypted. Untouched for decades. William's breath caught in his throat. Why hadn't this file been discovered by looters or scavengers? Why was it still locked down? He began decoding the first layer. His fingers moved across the screen, entering key sequences and accessing Council-era clearance codes, his own, long dormant but still functional. A name flashed across the interface, Echo Protocol, Human Departure Record 429 Delta. Then came a second notification, external ping detected. William's blood went cold. Someone else was watching. Before he could trace the signal, it vanished. He downloaded what he could and disconnected. He looked around. The silence seemed heavier now. The shadows felt closer. Back aboard Arcus, he reviewed the fragments. There were mentions of an internal human dispute, a hidden threat. Someone had wanted humanity out of the Council desperately. The departure had been a stage failure, not a decision of peace or politics. And whoever had buried this data had done so with care and fear. William leaned back in his seat, eyes locked on the corrupted file. "If this is true," he whispered, "we didn't leave. We were pushed." The ship's AI interrupted. An unidentified vessel entered the system. No response to hails. William didn't answer right away. He stared at the blinking light on the console. Someone knew he had found something. Someone didn't want the truth coming back. He stood up slowly, eyes still fixed on the incoming ship. "It begins again," he said softly. Then louder, "Prepare to jump. We're not staying here." The engines began to hum. The ruins of Carrion 5 faded behind them, but William knew he'd return. He had to. Stars stretched into thin lines as William's ship, Arcus, jumped into hyperspace. He didn't know who had followed him or how long he had before they caught up again. All he knew was that he couldn't stay in one place for long. Not anymore. Not after what he had found on Carrion 5. The decrypted file, Echo Protocol 429 Delta, was incomplete, but even the fragments were disturbing. The documents hinted at a deep rift within the Council's human delegation. Words like threat containment, fabricated exit, and forced silence repeated again and again. It was clear humanity hadn't willingly left the Galactic Council. Something or someone had pushed them out. Now, William needed help. Not many of his old contacts were still alive or reachable. Most had vanished after the Council's fall. But there was one who might still be out there. He set a course for the outer colony world of Relay 4, a dusty trade hub near the outer fringe of what was once neutral space. It was home to smugglers, ex-diplomats, and information brokers. If anyone had seen pieces of the truth, it was them. The journey took hours. William used the time to clean up the file, removing corruption and trying to reassemble the broken data strings. He found part of a recorded message, an old human envoy, her voice sharp and urgent. They will blame us. But if we stay, the council collapses from within. We've been given no choice. We must vanish, or burn with them. Then it cut off. No names, no dates. Just that chilling voice. Relay came into view, orange and red sands, tall rock formations, and massive trade silos surrounded by defensive towers. The planet's orbit was littered with broken satellites and rusting cargo ships. William received a docking code from an old merchant freighter called the Hollow Star. Its pilot was someone he had met years ago, Rel Danth, a former council logistics officer turned scrap dealer. After landing, William stepped out into the hot wind of the colony. The spaceport buzzed with noise, aliens haggling, old engines screeching, and speakers announcing shipment delays. He made his way through the dusty alleys until he found Rel's station, a hollowed-out cargo bay now filled with computers, blinking servers, and half-broken robots. Rel looked up from his desk. He was older now, with metal implants on one arm and a cracked lens over one eye. "William Wilson," Rel said, standing slowly. "You're either brave or stupid to show your face again." "Maybe both," William replied. "I need your help." Rel grunted. "Everyone does." They sat down. William explained what he found. Rel didn't interrupt, but his expression changed the more he heard. By the end, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "I remember whispers," Rel said. "Back before the humans left. There were meetings without records. Escorts with no names. You all pulled out fast, no vote, no explanation. Left the rest of us to fight over the ashes." William opened the file and showed him the voice log. Rel stared at the screen, face hard. "That's Isla Marin. She was one of the Inner Circle top-level council liaison. She vanished just before Earth recalled its people. Do you know where I can find her?" William asked. "Dead," Rel said. "At least, that's what they told us. Ship destroyed in transit. But now," he tapped the screen. "If this message survived, maybe she did too." William stood. "I need more data. Records, flight logs, anything from the last days before the pullout. If someone forced us out, we need to expose them." Rel nodded slowly. "I'll send you what I have. But be careful, Will. The Free Dominion doesn't like questions." William paused. "You think they were involved?" Rel's face darkened. "I don't think. I know. Vexthaler was part of a covert faction that wanted the council gone. Unity was bad for business. Too many rules. That name, Vexthaler. William had heard it before. A military leader turned warlord. Now the self-declared commander of the Free Dominion, the largest and most dangerous faction to rise after the council fell. William left with a dated chip, his thoughts spinning. Thaler. Marin. The voice. The exile. Something massive had been hidden. And if he kept digging, he was going to step on someone powerful. Back aboard Arcus, he scanned the new files. One flagged immediately Marin's final flight plan. It was encoded, but the coordinates pointed to an abandoned research station near the Karen Drift, a dead zone filled with ion storms and radiation. Before he could begin decoding it, the ship's warning alarms blared. Incoming missile lock detected. Stealth signature confirmed. William jumped into the cockpit. A sleek black ship had uncloaked nearby. Its weapons were hot. The first shot hit the station behind him, sending debris flying. Rel's compound exploded in a ball of fire. "No," William whispered, watching the flames. He slammed the controls and took off. As Arcus rocketed away, William knew one thing for certain: he wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. They were chasing him. The blast from the black ship still echoed in William's ears long after he left the atmosphere of Relay 4. His hands gripped the controls tighter than necessary as Arcus sped through space. Flames had swallowed Reldanth and his data center in seconds. William had barely escaped. If he had been just a few seconds slower, he'd be dead too. He stared at the screen showing the last encrypted file Rel gave him, Marin's final flight plan. A faint trail, buried under layers of distortion and old code, pointed toward a region in space no sane traveler would enter without a death wish, the Karen Drift. It was a narrow corridor of space plagued by radiation storms, gravity anomalies, and centuries of drifting shipwrecks. The Galactic Council had marked it unrecoverable long ago. William sighed and adjusted course. If Isla Marin had gone there, it wasn't by choice. As the ship entered hyperspace again, William took a moment to breathe. He hadn't felt this hunted since the Council collapsed. He remembered the last few weeks before Earth's withdrawal, briefings filled with vague warnings, sudden orders, and sealed documents. There had been confusion, frustration, and then silence. He poured himself a glass of stale water and looked out at the star trails passing by. The Council had meant everything to him. It was the galaxy's promise of peace. As a young envoy, William had worked side by side with alien species he once feared or misunderstood. He had seen trust built between enemies. He had watched colonies rise together. But then humanity left. Not just left, vanished. Earth ships disappeared overnight. Communications were cut. No explanation, no public message. William had been one of the few left behind to face the confusion and anger. He closed his eyes, remembering Isla Marin's voice from the file. We must vanish, or burn with them. What had she known? Arcus dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Charon drift. The stars here were faint and scattered, like they were hiding behind a curtain. Ahead, space looked twisted, like it was folding in on itself. Static flooded the sensors, and red warnings flashed across the screen. Shields flickered as radiation licked the hull. William activated the old Council beacon frequency. It pulsed weakly, bouncing between fragments of broken satellites. A response returned, weak but real, a signal buried inside a long-dead research platform. He followed it in. The station came into view. It was small and broken, clinging to a dying asteroid. Its lights barely blinked, and one of its docking arms had snapped in half. William maneuvered carefully, locking the Arcus in place. He entered with caution. The air was stale but breathable. Emergency lights cast a dull red glow across the corridor. Everything was silent, except for the hum of old machines still doing their job after decades of neglect. He reached the central control room. A cracked monitor buzzed. A message played automatically as he approached. Log entry, Commander Isla Marin. Date 3110. We are beyond the drift. No one followed, yet. If this message plays, I did not make it. William leaned closer, heart pounding. We discovered the truth too late. Thaler and others had already moved against us. They planted lies, sabotaged missions, blamed Earth for Council failures. The vote to dissolve our alliance never happened. It was faked. We were exiled under threat of war, or worse. The screen flickered. I took the ship to hide what we found. There's a backup copy of everything proof stored in the beacon core. If anyone finds this, don't let them erase the truth. The Council was never the problem. The enemy was always inside. The message ended. William stood in silence. The truth was worse than he imagined. Humanity had been framed and forced to leave. Thaler had orchestrated the collapse from within. He hadn't just taken advantage of chaos, he had created it. William found the beacon core, removed the storage module, and returned to Arcus. As he loaded it into the ship's main system, a new message appeared. Incoming transmission. Free Dominion scout vessel identified. William cursed under his breath. He activated the engines. A sleek Dominion ship had entered the edge of the drift, scanning the area. He knew what that meant. They had tracked him from Relay 4. No time to fight, he muttered. We run. He took the ship straight into the heart of the drift, through shifting fields of space debris and wild gravity pockets. The Dominion ship followed, but not closely, hesitating at each unstable wave of radiation. William pushed Arcus through, systems screaming, alarms blaring. Finally, the Dominion ship pulled back, unwilling to follow any deeper. Arcus burst out of the far end of the drift, scarred but intact. William exhaled. He now had the full truth. Isla Marin's records confirmed what the fragment on Carrion 5 had suggested. Humanity had been set up. Thaler had betrayed the Council and covered his tracks. It was time to show the galaxy. The ship's systems groaned as William brought Arcus out of the Charon drift. Smoke trailed from one engine. Panels sparked near the back of the cockpit, but the ship held together. Barely. William sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars ahead. Behind him, he had left radiation storms, broken satellites, and a Dominion scout that didn't dare chase him too far. He had escaped again, but he knew it wouldn't last. He was being hunted now, and the walls were closing in. He inserted Isla Marin's beacon data into the main console. A progress bar began to fill as the files decrypted. The screen lit up with documents, voice logs, and Council archives that had been hidden for decades. Marin had kept it all, proof of a secret campaign to force humanity out of the Council, lies planted in reports, false records of votes that never happened, missions that were sabotaged from within. And the name behind it all came up again and again, Vex Thaler. William stared at the final message Isla left, her voice calm and steady even as her ship drifted into the dead zone. To whoever finds this, don't fight for Earth alone. Fight for the Council. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. They deserve the chance to rebuild. William leaned back in his seat, exhausted but determined. He opened a comms channel. There was only one place he could send this message where someone might listen: Station Kirill, a neutral archive outpost hidden in the asteroid belt of the Helix sector. It was run by former peacekeepers and old historians, people who once served the Council. If anyone still believed in unity, they would. He sent the files with a simple message. Truth recovered. Need protection. Coming in. But Arcus never made it to Station Kirill. 2 hours into the journey, just outside the orbit of an abandoned mining colony, a blast hit the ship. The cockpit flashed red. Incoming fire, port side. Engines failing. William struggled to hold the controls. The ship spun, shaking violently. Shields down. Boarding attempt detected. Before he could reach the escape pod, the ship jolted hard. Lights went out. Everything went dark. He woke up in a cold metal room, wrists bound by magnetic cuffs. The air was heavy, the walls dimly lit. A single door stood shut. Moments later, it slid open with a hiss. A tall figure entered, his skin gray and lined with ridges along his jaw, his eyes sharp and calculating. He wore black Dominion armor with a red emblem over the chest. Vex Thaler. William sat up, jaw tight. So, the ghost shows up in person. Thaler didn't smile. He stepped forward slowly, hands behind his back. You've been busy, he said. His voice was deep, steady, digging through ruins, playing messenger. I thought Earth had forgotten how to fight. I remember enough, William said. Thaler stopped just in front of him. I warned your people not to return. Your council was weak, slow, full of dreamers. I ended it. You destroyed it to take power. I destroyed it to free the galaxy, Thaler snapped. The council held us all in chains. Trade restrictions, peace treaties, laws for systems that never agreed to them. You humans built that machine. I simply shut it down. William didn't respond. He knew arguing wouldn't change Thaler's mind. Thaler leaned closer. You found Isla Marin's records. I expected someone would. That's why you're here now. To make a choice. William frowned. What choice? You can disappear, Thaler said. Walk away. Stay out of it. I'll let you live. William stared back at him. And if I don't? Then I erase you. And everything you found. Thaler stood and walked to the door. Decide quickly. My patience is not infinite. He left. William sat in silence. He knew what was coming. If Thaler didn't get the answer he wanted, this room would become his grave. But there was one thing Thaler didn't know. William had sent the files. All of them. A sudden explosion shook the room. Alarms blared. The door opened again, but not for Thaler. A figure in a long coat and breathing mask entered, firing a pulse rifle at the guards. Move, the voice shouted. William blinked. Tira. The figure pulled off her mask. It was Tira Voss, the rogue pilot William had worked with years ago during his time with the Council. Still causing problems, I see, she said, shooting off the magnetic cuffs. I thought you were dead, William muttered, standing. You're not the only one people try to kill. She tossed him a sidearm. We've got maybe 5 minutes. Let's go. They fought their way through the corridors of the Dominion ship. Smoke filled the halls. Tira moved fast, confident. William followed, his legs sore but adrenaline keeping him upright. They reached a small shuttle bay. Tira opened the hatch to her stolen ship, sleek and fast, barely holding together. Where to? She shouted as they took off. Kirill Station, William said. If the message got through, we're not alone anymore. They blasted away as Dominion fighters gave chase, but Tira knew how to fly. The stars stretched once more as the ship jumped into hyperspace. William slumped into his seat, breathing hard. Thaler had shown his face. Now the galaxy would see his truth. The cold light of hyperspace gave way to the peaceful stars of the Helix sector. Tira's stolen ship, Wraithwing, dropped out of jump right outside Station Kirill, a large, rotating facility nestled in the shadow of a shattered asteroid belt. Once a research center during the final years of the Galactic Council, it had become a shelter for ex-diplomats, historians, and exiles who still believed in the idea of unity. As the docking clamps locked in place, William leaned back in his seat and exhaled. His muscles ached. His eyes stung from lack of sleep. But his mind was focused. He had made it. The message had been sent. The truth about the Council, about Earth's exile, and about Vex Thaler was now in the hands of those who could spread it. He looked over at Tira, who was checking the ship's systems for damage. Her face was calm, but he could see the tension in her jaw. "You didn't have to come back for me," he said quietly. She gave him a tired smirk. "You'd have done the same. Besides, you owe me a new ship." They stepped into the docking bay, greeted by a group of guards in mismatched armor. At their head was a tall woman with silver braids and a calm but stern expression. She wore a faded council badge on her chest. "I'm Commander Lisa Varon," she said. "You're William Wilson?" "Yes," William replied. "I have something your people need to see." They were escorted to a secure conference room where a holographic table lit up in the center. Around it sat representatives from the scattered remains of the old Galactic Council, a few alien leaders, former human allies, and independent peacekeepers. They looked tired, worn down by years of war and mistrust. But they were listening. William loaded the decrypted data from Isla Marin's beacon into the system. The room fell silent as Isla's voice echoed once again. "We didn't leave by choice. We were silenced, threatened. The Council was betrayed from within. Thaler orchestrated the fall. I have hidden the truth here, in hopes someone will one day rebuild what we lost." Then the files appeared, records of Council meetings that never happened, ships destroyed before votes, messages intercepted and rewritten. The evidence was clear. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. It had been forced out to make way for chaos. When the presentation ended, no one spoke at first. Then Lisa stood. "This confirms everything many of us suspected," she said. "But suspicion and proof are different things. You've given us proof." One of the alien representatives, a short, scaled diplomat from the Terran League, leaned forward. "And what do we do now?" "The Dominion controls 5 sectors. Thaler is growing stronger. We do what the Council was meant to do," William said. "We unify. Not under one banner, but with one goal, peace. We bring the truth to every world Thaler has lied to. We show them who he really is." Tira added, "If people hear the truth, some will resist him. Others will fight. He can't silence everyone." Lisa nodded. "Then we begin again. Quietly. Carefully. But we begin." Messages were sent from Station Kirill across the old Council channels, most of them long thought dead. Some were intercepted. Others disappeared. But some made it through. A week later, a signal came from the Frasari Union, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Their leader offered support. Then another came from a rebel group in Sector 9 who had fought against Dominion control. One by one, responses trickled in. Not many. Not enough for a war. But enough to spark a movement. William walked the outer ring of Kirill Station, watching new ships arrive, each carrying envoys, messengers, or fighters who still believed unity was possible. "This is more than I expected," he told Tira. "Don't get soft," she said, nudging him. "This is just the beginning." He looked out at the stars. "We're not rebuilding the old Council," he said. "That's gone. But maybe we can build something better. Something honest." Tira nodded. "So, what's the next step?" William smiled faintly. "We take the truth to the front lines." Just as he spoke, a coded warning came in. A Dominion fleet was on the move. Thaler had seen the signals. He knew they were spreading the truth, and he was coming to stop it. The Council ruins loomed again, cold and silent in the dark. Once, Carrion 5 had been a beacon of unity. Now, it was the center of a desperate plan. William Wilson stood on the command deck of Arcus, staring down at the station that had become both tomb and symbol. Around it, small ships gathered, old transports, scout vessels, and freighters now repurposed for defense. They weren't a fleet, not in the real sense. They were all that was left of the Council's dream. But they had something Vex Thaler didn't. Truth. Tira stepped beside him, adjusting the controls. "Our signal's being picked up across 4 sectors. People are watching." "Good," William said. "They need to see what happens here." Down on the station, engineers worked fast, installing a relay tower in the Council chamber. Once activated, it would send Isla Marin's full archive to every open channel in the galaxy. No more secrets. No more lies. Just the truth about how the Council fell and who made it happen. But time was running out. Alarms blared across Arcus as a fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Dominion ships, sleek, black, and armed to the teeth, filled the screen. At the center was Thaler's command cruiser, twice the size of any other vessel. Its symbol, a red slash across a broken ring, glowed like a wound in space. "They're jamming signals," Tira said. "We need to activate the relay now." William opened a channel to the fleet. "This is William Wilson of Earth. I have uncovered proof that Vex Thaler betrayed the Galactic Council. I'm transmitting that truth now. If you stop us, you silence not just history, but hope." No reply. Moments later, Dominion ships began to move. They were coming straight for the station. William turned to Tira. "Buy me 5 minutes." She grinned. "I'll give you 10. Tira launched in the Wraithwing, leading a group of fighters toward the Dominion blockade. Explosions lit up the blackness as the first salvos were exchanged. Dominion firepower was overwhelming, but the defenders fought fiercely, weaving between wreckage and debris to stay alive. William raced through the station's ruined halls, carrying the relay core to the central chamber. Dust and old ash swirled with every step. Once, diplomats from hundreds of worlds had gathered here. Now, only echoes remained. He reached the control hub and plugged the relay in. Lights flickered. A hum filled the air as the tower activated. Signal boosting, 90%. Outside, Tira's ship took a hit. She rolled hard, narrowly missing a blast that tore a freighter apart. On the Dominion bridge, Thaler stood watching the station. His eyes narrowed as he saw the relay tower light up. "Destroy it," he ordered. Several Dominion cruisers broke formation, heading straight for the surface of Carrion. 5. Inside the chamber, William's screen flashed red. "Incoming strike, missile lock confirmed." He stayed focused, tapping commands. A final prompt appeared. "Begin transmission?" He pressed yes. The station shook violently as the first missile hit the outer ring. Debris fell from the ceiling. Sparks rained down. But the relay held. A glowing pulse of blue light shot from the tower, spreading into space. The transmission began. Isla Marin's voice echoed once more, calm, clear, undeniable. The truth was buried. Now it rises. In every system across the galaxy, her message broke through Dominion jammers. Screens lit up in marketplaces, on military bases, in homes and hideouts. Civilians, soldiers, and leaders alike heard what had really happened. On the Dominion ship, a junior officer turned to Thaler. "Sir, we're getting backlash. Multiple factions are demanding a ceasefire. Some ships are standing down." Thaler's jaw tightened. He stared at the screen, where William's face now appeared beside Marin's. "They're choosing chaos," he growled. "No," said the officer. "They're choosing truth." Furious, Thaler ordered another strike, but it was too late. His hold on the galaxy had begun to slip. Back in the station, the chamber collapsed around William. He barely escaped through an old maintenance tunnel. Outside, Tira landed and pulled him aboard just as the outer walls gave way. "You alive?" she asked. "Barely," William replied, coughing. But it worked. Ships across the sector had stopped firing. Messages came in from across space, offers to talk, to rebuild, to reconnect. The war wasn't over, but something far greater had started. The truth had awakened the galaxy. The dust had settled over Carrion. 5. The old council station drifted quietly, battered but still clinging to the bones of its former glory. Debris floated across the silence of space, reminders of the battle that had just passed, a battle not just for control, but for truth. William Wilson stood at the large, shattered window of the central hall, now patched with temporary barriers and emergency lights. In the distance, ships from dozens of systems moved into formation, not for war, but for peace. A new signal beacon pulsed from the relay tower he had helped power just days before. It no longer carried lies or orders. It carried an invitation. Behind him, workers cleared debris and set up long tables and makeshift chairs. The chamber was being restored slowly. Delegates from across the galaxy were arriving. Some wore military uniforms. Others wore robes, merchant cloaks, or old council badges long thought discarded. They looked wary but hopeful. Tira walked into the hall, brushing dust off her coat. "This place still gives me the creeps." "It should," William said. "But it's different now. We're not just trying to rebuild what failed. We're trying to fix how it broke." She joined him at the window. "Think anyone will stay after the speeches?" "Some will," he said. "That's enough." The first envoys arrived from the Frasari Union, followed by the Terran League, and then a small group from Earth's colonies, people William had thought lost in the Council's collapse. One by one, they gathered. Commander Lisa Varin approached the podium in the center of the chamber. The hum of quiet voices faded as she spoke. Not long ago, this hall was filled with silence and ruin. Today, it holds something more powerful: witnesses, survivors, believers. She gestured to William. "This man risked everything to bring us the truth. Because of that, we know how the council fell. We know who broke it. But now we choose what comes next." She stepped aside. William took a breath and stepped forward. He didn't speak like a leader. He wasn't one. He was just a messenger who had carried the truth through fire. "When I first came back to Carrion, 5, he said, I thought I'd find an answer buried in the rubble. Instead, I found a question. What kind of galaxy do we want to live in? He looked around the room. Thexthalon wanted chaos. He thought freedom meant every system fighting for itself. But freedom without unity is just survival. We can do better. The room was still. We don't need another empire. We don't need a council that forgets who it serves. We need a place where voices are heard, where peace is worth more than power. Someone clapped. Then others joined. The sound grew, not loud, but strong. Later, in the smaller meeting rooms, talks began. Slow, careful, but real. Old enemies sat across from each other. Agreements were discussed. Boundaries redrawn. Resources shared. Across the galaxy, Dominion influence began to crack. Some of Thalos' commanders surrendered. Others went quiet. He himself had vanished, his flagship last seen retreating into the dark edge of the Veil Nebula. But it didn't matter. The truth had already done what weapons could not. William watched as the representatives signed the first declaration, a simple one, promising no more lies and no more silence. Tira joined him again. So she said, "What now?" He smiled. "Now we keep going." They stood there, side by side, watching history restart. And above them, the stars felt closer.